This week I wanted to learn a few fighting techniques and tricks using nunchucks, from beginner level to advanced. I started practicing immediately, but in the beginning I simply kept hurting myself in many creative ways. And even if I was using training nunchucks before moving to the real ones, these things hurt. So then I watched a bunch of videos, and before moving to the tricks, I decided to learn 3 fighting techniques, all based on the same principle. When you spin nunchucks, only the bottom part of them has all the energy and power. If the top part of the handle hits your body, the nunchuck will simply bounce back. It doesn't hurt. Really? The first technique is the horizontal spin, and it consists in letting the nunchucks bounce on the sides of your body and strike in the middle. At first, I simply kept hitting my back, but then by holding the nunchuck slightly above the middle point and extend my arm a bit more, I got fluid and comfortable with it. And it's pretty easy. The second technique is the vertical spin. The concept is basically the same of the first one, but this time you let the nunchucks bounce on your triceps on top and kill the momentum on the bottom, while keeping the other hand at chest level the whole time. I found this one a bit more difficult than the first one, but then by practicing a lot and keeping my arm higher, I started to get pretty fast. And when I got confident doing the same with my left hand, which took me a while, it's so hard, I tried to learn how to pass the nunchucks from one end to the other. This technique is called underarm catch, and it seems easy, but it's not. I had to practice for about 30 minutes before getting it right, catching the nunchucks consistently and creating a few combinations with them. The third fighting technique before moving to the tricks consists in striking by literally shooting out the nunchucks. Starting from this position, you should snap your arm and let the nunchuck strike. And I could kinda already do that, but in theory the chuck should come back to the original position, and it took me a while. At first I kept hitting my ribs, but once you get it, this technique is really cool and powerful. Yeah, I get it. And you know what? It gets even cooler and more painful when you use real nunchucks. But besides the fact that these things can be seriously dangerous, they are really fun. At this point I decided to learn 4 insanely cool tricks. The first 3 combined will form the best and last one. The first trick is called the rip roll. This movement gives you the basic hand motions that allows you to access a bunch of other tricks, including the next 3 on the list. Basically, you start by holding the nunchucks with one hand with the palm facing upwards and the other hand with the palm on the bottom. Now, throw the chuck you're holding with the back grip over the other hand, which is the right hand for me. Now, this is the hardest part. With my right hand, I have to let go the nunchuck while grabbing the other one. Then, by swinging the nunchuck upwards with my right hand and catching it with my left hand, we go back to the original position, but this time, holding the nunchucks the opposite way. The trick consists in repeating the same movement with the left hand, then with the right hand, generating a continuous roll. I started slowly to get used to the technique. At some point, the nunchuck wanted to hang out with my forehead, but it didn't work out between them. So I kept practicing, and I was getting better, but when I tried to increase the speed of the trick, I kept hurting myself. The next day when I tried again, for some reason, I was better at this. Yes. And after about 30 minutes of practice, by taking advantage of the momentum of the nunchucks, the movement started to get fluid, and after a while, I got faster. The second trick is similar to the first one, but it's harder, and you only need to use one hand. It consists in spinning the chucks around your wrist. It's kinda like a thumb around with a pen, or a Zen rollover with a butterfly knife, but with nunchucks. You start from the same position of the first trick, and then throw the nunchuck over the hand that's holding with the front grip. Then transfer the grip over the other nunchuck and swing it until you arrive to a vertical position. Now things get different from the previous trick. Instead of swinging the nunchuck and catching it with the left hand, I had to swing it over the same hand, transfer the grip, and swing it again, basically repeating the same motion over and over. At first I was dropping the nunchucks basically every time, but after 20 minutes the movement became more intuitive and I started to see better results. But I knew I was still missing something. I can do better. Because the rotating motion wasn't fluid enough. I kept trying and I kept improving a bit and then getting worse. But literally out of nowhere, after half an hour, I've been able to blend all the steps into a single fluid motion. The key here is holding the nunchucks loosely and rotating the wrist. This way I could also increase the speed. And after about 3 hours in total, I was pretty happy with the results. Yes! Yes! The next trick is by far the easiest, but it's fundamental to achieve the fourth and best one. I started spinning the nunchucks in circular movements, on my right and then on my left, creating a sort of 8-digit or infinite symbol with the movement. To gain speed, instead of moving the entire arm, I started to create all the rotations simply by using my wrist. It's pretty easy and it's fun. And finally, it was time to learn the last trick. This one is hard, but it's extremely cool. It's called figure 8 wrist roll, and as the name implies, it's a combination of the infinite wrist roll and the figure 8. To practice this trick, I started with the basic circular spin of the figure 8, while the second step is performing a wrist roll every single time the arm points at 6 o'clock, and it took me a while to get used to it. At first it felt a bit weird, doing the wrist roll after crossing my body over to the left. But as always, it's all about practice. Then, after the first wrist roll, you hold the nunchucks with a back grip. This step is a bit tricky, because you have to perform the figure 8 with a back grip. And when the arm gets at 6 o'clock once again, by doing another wrist roll, you'll go back to the original position with a front grip. This is extremely complicated, but I'm sure that once you get it, it's gonna be so worth it. Anyways, I started practicing. In the beginning, moving my arm really slow, performing one step at a time to get the theory down. I'm not gonna lie, at first the nunchucks kept falling and I was getting hurt every single time. But luckily, knowing the previous 3 tricks made my life way easier. So after 40 minutes, I was trying to blend all the movements and slowly, I got more and more confident. Yeah! I totally feel like Bruce Lee right now. The last and most difficult step was to increase the speed of rotation. And as for the figure 8 trick, it all comes down to bring your arm closer to your body and let the wrist roll with the nunchucks. This step took me a bunch of time and effort. I kept practicing without knowing if I was doing something wrong. But slowly, I was getting better. And then, when I started using brand new nunchucks, after another 2 hours of spinning, I was kinda getting good at this. I still failed a few times, obviously. But overall, I was smoother and faster than ever. You can gain extra speed by adding another circular movement as soon as you catch the nunchucks with the front grip. For some reason, this adds a bunch of speed and makes the trick even cooler. Nunchucks are tiring and really painful sometimes, but it's totally worth it.